What's up guys? Today we're going to walk through an installation of our brand new CTA full guard front bumper. This is for the 2024 and up GMC HD. This is the all steel bumper. It's really tough, heavy duty, but it comes in at under 200 pounds. It's winch compatible, has a 2-inch receiver. It works with factory fog lights or aftermarket lights, and it works with all your sensors or camera. Let's check it out. Here's what you'll have when you get it all unboxed. Of course, you'll have these really heavy-duty frame mounts that connect the truck's frame to the bumper. You'll have miscellaneous brackets, all the hardware that's needed. We'll go through that step by step in detail. If you have parking sensors, which this truck does, we'll go through all that, how to reuse those. And if you don't have parking sensors, we have little delete caps that snap in place so you have the illusion of having the sensors, so you just don't have a hole in the bumper. Got this neat little cap that gives it a real similar appearance where it meets the body line to the factory fender. Then depending on which type of fog lights you want to run, we've got options. So if you have the factory fog lights and want to reuse them, we have this filler plate. That way all your wiring's already done. If you don't have fog lights, or if you want to upgrade to some aftermarket pods, you can put 2 pods in each pocket and install that instead. Let's get started. We're going to start by disconnecting this main wiring plug. It's on the inside of the driver's side frame rail. Okay. We're going to focus more on the installation of the CTA bumper than we are the removal of the OEM bumper. But I'll show you some quick tips and tricks for removing this actually without taking the grill off. We're going to do everything on the driver's side. You can just repeat that on the passenger side. So this big brace is going to come off. I'm going to take off these 2 and this one, and they're a 15 millimeter. There's a couple big bolts per side going straight down into some bracketry. The first one you can see if you look just above kind of the tow hook and just slightly outboard. Not sure if you can see it on the video. That's one. I'm going to do that one second because it's easier to get to. The other one you won't be able to see unless you use some sort of camera, but just above the parking sensor you can feel kind of a half-moon notch in the plastic, and that's going to be the notch where our extension goes. And this is typically where you would remove the grill, but to save time, I've got just the right length of extension here. I believe this is a 6-inch and a 1-inch and an 18 millimeter shallow socket. And that's going to put this, this ratchet handle right in the gap between the grill and the bumper. You can kind of see the bolt and nut if you look through the tow hook. I'm going to the top side. This nut's welded on, so I'm going to the bolt head on the top side of this. So this seems pretty tedious. I'm not a fan of removing the grill just because I always feel like I'm going to break the clips. So for me, it's better to do it this way. But it's much easier to get to the hardware if you pull the grill off. Now we're going to get that top bolt out. If you have this block heater plug on the side, there's a clip behind here that we're going to disconnect. So just kind of push the bumper forward, make sure it doesn't fall off. And it's a round connector up high there. I'm just going to push on it on the tab and it should come out. There it goes. And also it's going to be connected to the bumper with a Christmas tree clip, so we'll pop that off too. Now we're disconnected. Over here on the passenger side will be the main plug for the wiring for the bumper. Right here, it'll have a red safety tab, and then press that little tab and pull it out. Grab a helper. We've got a plastic tab kind of behind the grill, so we're going to kind of rotate the bumper away, down, and out. We're going to take out these little brackets here that held the bumper with a 15 millimeter socket, including this little air dam. That'll get discarded because that's right where your winch is going to go. Do keep these 4 bolts per side. Now we're going to take out the tow hooks with an 18 millimeter. Keep these tow hooks, they'll go back in the new bumper. Okay. Just like on the disassembly, I'll show you everything on the driver's side and you just repeat. So the bolts that were in here that we retained, we're going to use those now. These frame mounts are marked with a little stamp, D for driver, P for passenger. We'll leave those loose for now. We've got some lower braces. You'll have these, they're mirrored parts of one another. And this bolt strip, that's what's going to hang it from the frame. So the two holes where the tow hook used to be, you'll put this little bolt strip in from the inside out. And then hang the part, give it a matching flat washer, lock nut. Then you have the most of these. They're about 2 inches long. We're going to use them for pretty much everything else on the bumper install. Give it a flat washer on both sides and a lock nut. We'll do the same on the other side of this frame rail and repeat on the passenger side. Before we tighten everything down, I've measured the gap outside to outside on the bumper rib at 27 7/8. So I'm going to set this for just slightly above that, just a hair below 29 in this case. So I've got that gap set. I'm going to go ahead and tighten down all the bolts on the end of the frame rail. That way when I go to install the bumper, I don't have to loosen it up again. Worst case, if it's too tight, you can just loosen a few of these and shift it out, but hopefully that's not going to be the case this time. We're going to start the tow hooks, but not completely install them. It's a lot easier to get the bolts started while there's no bumper on the frame. So with the part that rises on top, I'm going to get the bolts started. And then to take up the gap between the tow hook and this bracket, we've given you 3 different thicknesses of these shims. They're bent like this so you have a little handle. In our application here, the medium one is a really nice tight fit. On this side, I'm going to leave these bolts just flush so that the bumper can slide past. That's going to be a lot easier than trying to put those bolts on after the bumper's installed. So we'll leave it just like that. Now we're going to prep the new bumper for installation. There are a few things on our old bumper, which I have turned upside down here, that we're going to need. The little wiring for the block heater, we'll need the wiring harness, and we'll need the actual lights and parking sensors. So to do that, we're going to have to take this giant plate off. To start, you'll need a little trim clip tool and a 13mm socket. This you push in, quarter turn to the right, and the spring and the little nut come off. And this little keeper. Then the rest of it pops out through the outside of the bumper. I'm going to put this stuff on here just so I don't lose it. I'll set it aside. Take this off. Take this completely off. There are a couple hidden right here coming from the opposite direction. So we're going to take out a couple of these little bitty, I think that's going to be an 8mm. We'll take this plastic cap off, and then we'll be able to access these bolts from the other side. And I told you wrong, this appears to be a 7, which I'm missing from my kit, so I'm using a 9/32 standard, which seems to work just fine. We've got to take this little badge off. Now we need to take out the wiring harness and the parking sensors. You can leave it all intact just by prying upwards on the top and downwards on the bottom of this housing. You can get the sensor out. And I'm also pushing the sensor inwards from the outside. Then we'll remove all these little Christmas trees and clips so the wiring harness can come out as well. We've got our parking sensors and fog lights, wiring harness here at the new bumper, ready to put it in. I'm going to start with the factory fog lights. So we do give you bolts and nuts if you want to bolt this in. I kind of like to reuse the factory stuff that we pulled out of the bumper, and they will snap right on to these tabs, and we'll be able to reuse this hardware. Now to install this unit into the bumper itself, we've given you these small black bolts that have a lock washer and flat washer built in, as well as a flanged serrated nut. So I like to install the bolt from the inside facing outward. Next, we're going to bolt on this top cap. It orients like this so that this line continues. Got kind of these medium-sized 8mm button head bolts with a flat washer on top. And on the underside, we will do the matching flat washer and lock washer and nut. You can use these inner curves as a guide to line it up. All right, next we're going to do the parking sensors and the fog light wiring harness. So the inner two sensors are going to install as the wiring harness is. The outer two won't quite reach, so we've provided these harness extensions. I'm choosing on this truck to use the harness extensions on the outer two because the fog lights actually reach just fine. So this extension goes between the harness and the actual sensor. So pull this red safety tab back, then you can remove the sensor and install the corresponding end of this extension. Now we'll put the sensor in the housing. If you still have this little stretchy ring that goes around the end of the sensor, you don't need it. You'll take these from our kit, take out the middle, you don't need it anymore. Then we'll peel the backing off and stick it to the sensor, around the edge of the sensor. And it will install into this housing. There's a little wing or tab on each side that will go into these grooves. Okay, next, I don't always peel this off, but it doesn't hurt. We're going to align this little half moon. It has a little circle shape in the middle that will align with this little pin. So we'll stick it there. And now this cap will go over this sensor housing and lock everything in place. snaps on nicely. And do the same on the other 3. Next, plug in your fog lights. Next, we're going to go ahead and put our winch in. Now's the time to do it since you can't do it after the installation. Just install the winch per the manufacturer's instructions. And if you live in a state where you are required to run a front license plate, my favorite way to do that is with a Fairlead style flip-up mount. That sandwiches between the Fairlead and the bumper, so now's the time to put that on as well. All right, we have the bumper fully prepped, ready to install. We've got it sitting on our cart here. At this point, grab 2 people, if possible, 1 to hold each side and a 3rd guy to put bolts in. The bumper will kind of rest on top of the mount, so you can carry it over to the mounts and set it there, and then regather yourselves. If you have the luxury to work with a lift, that's awesome, or even a lift cart that goes up and down. So we've got it set right here in front of the truck. We're going to slide it onto the mounts and see if we can get some of the bolt holes lined up and get a couple bolts in to get it started. I like to get it close, get 1 bolt in each side for safety, and then fine tune my adjustment. What I'm going to go for, and we're not there yet by any means, is while keeping the bumper nice and level compared to the body lines of the truck, I like to go about a 1/2 inch gap, or just about to where my first knuckle kind of stops all the way across. If you get any tighter than that, you run the risk of jamming the bumper up into the body if you flex off-road at all. And if you get too much more of a gap, it just doesn't look good. So I'm going to bring the bumper up to the truck just a little bit, and we're going to get some bolts in it. Okay, we've got it where we like it. I've got a bolt tight on each side, got both sides the same. Now we're just going to tighten a few more bolts, take the cart out from here, and tighten the rest of the bolts. We've got the factory wheel well liner hanging down a little bit too low. Since I don't want to cut any metal, I'm just going to trim this felt liner flush kind of with the bottom of this bracket, and then I'm going to angle up to the bottom of the bumper, but however you cut it's really up to you. After we do that, I'm going to take advantage of these zip tie holes that are in the back. I'm going to drill a hole adjacent to a couple of these and zip tie this liner to this, to the back of the bumper. If you don't, it's not going to be the end of the world. It just won't look as good because it'll probably eventually pop out like that. So. Okay, we've tightened up all the bolts, we tightened up the tow hooks, we routed our wires, zip tied everything up, trimmed the fender liners, and that wraps it up. If you guys have any questions, reach out to us at chandlertruckaccessories.com. Thanks for watching.